Hello. That was a really awful hello. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make a better one. Hello. How are you? Fine, thank you. Hope you guys are doing okay. Might quit my job, so we're probably gonna fucking go back to normal 24-hour streams. I mean, I don't know how my parents will feel about it or react to it. I really don't give a shit, honestly. I mean it with all my heart. It's something personal to me, and it's like, however they see it, I generally don't give a fuck. It's just as simple as that, really. Okay, just calibrate. There we go. Alright, let's play. Let's play. Let's play some video games. How about that? Sounds fun. That was sounded quick. Technically, Myra isn't like bannable a lot here. She's the least threat. She's just like an annoying bitch. That's what she is. She's slightly annoying, but not
Correctly join the channel.
Not to a point where it's like, okay, you know.
So you're going with golf? Joining Overwatch? Isn't that what you want? What I want never should have mattered to begin with.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. I just noticed, you can just check on video. It's still Derek's 11.
Please be patient with me.
Okay, I got confused.
For years, what's a little while longer? No.
Hello, internet.
I should one.
Come here, bro. You fucking idiot.
Ash is one.
How long did it take, bro? At least I distracted her for a bit.
خلي من هنا برا نيك. انا تليو. دقيقة بس. بديك تروح الان؟ جو جو. خلي نانا فرا. نانا. خلي نانا فرا بليز.
Fumbled it. Am I really the only fucking support? Oh, Anna said me. I apologize, Anna. She did a better job than I did. Video games.
بديك وقت ما اقول لك انا بديك نانا فرا اوكي؟ Okay, can you go? Go.
Oi. Man. Try to trick his ass and I got fucked. I'm going for the dynasty. fucking piece of shit, motherfucker! Don't die! Come on, come on. That should be enough.
You can nano Tressa if you want.
Nice. These guys do not fuck around.
I can.
Should I just go Mercy? What are? Fuck!
That's fine, one of it.
Should I go Mercy? Ah, I didn't do much damage. I'll just trust. I'll trust the process. Go Mercy.
Reinhardt, answering the recall is not my idea of hanging it up.
I had to show. Otherwise, your life would be far too easy.
And what a shame that would be. Right by you. Feel stronger?
Attackers incoming. Redoing stop the payload.
Combat operator.
No sign, right?
Mercy in the high traffic.
Bros, please. Oh, this guy didn't do shit. You didn't get a single kill. Oh, there we go. No bangadang. Suck a dick.
My skills are still needed. Come here, and I will heal the
You a fucking pussy.
عندك تدي نانو فرح جو 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 نانو نانو ماشي جي جي زي تراي
Oh fuck the food. Is it coming? Oh shit, wait, cancel, cancel, cancel. Oh, it's coming right now. Thank god I cancelled. Alright, we gonna have a food break, okay? I ordered veggies pizza, bro. Fucking fat as fuck. I don't know what I'm gonna watch though. Maybe like that fucking documentary or something. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I'm hungry. What is that?
Thank you for the follows. Are we gonna see the guy? The guys see me going across the two guys, and then they're gonna.
Alright, food is coming. I'll be right back.
gonna go into the
Alright, I'm back.
roof. He's gonna be like, tap him on the shoulder and they're gonna lower it down. Yep, there they are. I feel like they went back to this map when they remade Alex. Maybe. The sounds are so different, right? So, like, here's the thing. Because these maps are being played in the LeakNet 2003 build, the sounds are not accurate because we don't have the sounds that they replaced, right? So this is the first time I'm hearing any of this shit. The television store, yep. Are we gonna get to see the parade? Like the actual parade in its entire glory, like it's supposed to be seen? Oh. Look at those floating breads. Little loaves of bread. Combine guard. Yo. Holy shit. That's what it looked like? That's what it looked like? So they had like selective... Oh! Oh! What?
That was cool.
Oh! Oh! What? I have never... The Combine guard punching through that door and then a camera looking through. Never seen that in my life. Didn't know that existed. I have done thousands of hours of research on the development of this game. I had never seen that. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know that the Combine guard gun did like a black dome and like a television static dome. I don't know if that's a glitch in the engine or that's what it's supposed to look like. Yeah, this is Trap Town. Ravenholm before Ravenholm, and it's just this bridge. Probably temp. Yeah, it's probably placeholder effect, but still, holy shit, that looks so cool. It's a glitch. It's supposed to look like the Strider cannon thing. Oh, so it's supposed to look like a ripple in the air, like heat haze, like how you can see sound, like a sound of, like the speed of sound. Okay. World portal here. Okay, so this is the full map. So it seems like, yeah, I've said this before already, but it seemed like you could tell the engine what parts, what physical like, okay, ragdolls can have a higher frame rate than props or gibs or things like that. Yeah, so the Trap Town, the Ravenholm levels are probably the oldest surviving levels in the entire game. Like the reason why Ravenholm is so dark is because it's covering up just how basic the brushwork is compared to the rest of the game. Do you ever think Valve will do this for Portal on its anniversary? Yeah. At this point, yes. yeah, the Orange Box 20th will be huge. Will they do episode 1 20th? Probably not, no. Will they do episode 2 20th? Probably not, no. Will they do TF2 20th?
Bingo, bango, bongo.
Exactly. 10 months on Prime, thank you so much. Oh my god, what am I watching? A claymation? So cool. Oh, there was more to the 2002 demo than that. They had the fucking industrial sector with the child labor and the stenographer's cavern. Ah. And that was so cool. So, and also, I've seen the E3. We've all seen the E3 2003 showcase, like, many, 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 many times. So I'm not gonna rewatch that right now. I'll watch it in my own time. This is a new render. What are they doing new renders for? Okay, so that's a new gravity gun model, by the way. That's a new Alex Vance model. That's a new Gordon Freeman model. That's a new Alex gun model. Okay. I was told this was gonna make me cry. Oh.
I always have been doing since my childhood a bit of urban exploration.
Yo, we got Dishonored guy.
Of an abandoned factory.
Got Victor Antonov.
So that's what my hobbies used to be. What's on the roofs of buildings? You know, what's in an abandoned building cellar and in a factory? We did a lot of work on this.
You really went to these places with Victor. That's fucking insane. That is insane that you went to, with Victor to these places. That's
At the time when I did my first photo shoot of the Austerlitz station, it was under construction. But then there was no security guards, no fences. Even you can just walk and see the broken textures and layers of paint and brick and history. And it was just so cool that I can get this information.
That is crazy how much these pictures look like the game. Yes.
Did you take my mouse?
No.
Maybe it's upstairs.
I left your mouse upstairs.
Oh.
Yeah. God damn it.
And it happens.
$2.
There is a cool Easter egg at the bottom of the website if you click on the gravity gun. Okay,
thank you for telling me.
To be completely destroyed and under construction again. And it just goes back, luckily, coincidentally, to the exact same state where I shot it 25 years ago, actually.
Bring him back for Half-Life 3. Danny. the story of Half-Life 2's development is more complex than that of the first game. Several internal and external factors contributed to a long and often arduous development cycle. Much of this story has never been told until now. E3 2003 as G-Man.
So one of the big challenges with Half-Life was just establishing the company.
Dude, he wouldn't even meet you anywhere. You had to go onto his super yacht to interview him. What was that like? What was that like?
And sort of determining whether or not we could actually make video games at all. Like, my background was operating systems and spreadsheets. Mike Harrington, who was the co-founder, had a similar background. He had a lot more game experience than I did. But with Half-Life, you know, we were pretty sure we were going to fail. And then Half-Life was successful. It was like a lot more successful than we had any reason to expect. And now we had to follow it up, right? We didn't want to have a sophomore slump. We didn't want to be a one and done kind of company. So now we had the terrifying obligation to our customers and to our fans to somehow advance our game design skills, our technology, all needed to level up for the second game.
I think a bunch of us were really shocked by the success of Half-Life 1. We were this young, unproven company.
Kelly,
I don't
please.
think any of us really knew what to expect.
Please, Kelly, please.
Hey,
One last. What?
I'm leaving.
Can't see. One last on their.
I remember when we started working on Half-Life 2, we had already set the bar pretty high for ourselves.
So during Half-Life 2, what we were really trying to do is take advantage of the visibility that Half-Life had created for us in the industry to continue to hire the best people that we could find in the world. It just got easier. The bar didn't get any lower, but the fact that we had, it went from, hey, this weird dude who worked on operating systems wants to convince you he can run a game company, to, oh, Half-Life won a bunch of awards, and now they're working on a sequel to that.
Even my first week or my first day was actually the going away party for Mike Harrington, the co-founder.
Yeah, I came to Valve when it was just tiny. We had, I think, or maybe 10 or so people.
It's that guy.
Dave and I grew up together in Louisiana, so he and I had always talked about maybe starting a game company at some point. And during Half-Life, that kind of changed to maybe instead of that, the dream could be you come and work here at this one, with me.
Yeah, and I interviewed the day that Half-Life went gold, and I took the team photo of.
There's like an old photo of us. We broke a paper mache head crab and everything.
Yeah, I was freaking out.
Yeah.
I was actually working on a video game concept in high school, and I was seeking a mentor, and I got in touch with Mark later at Valve. I guess it was the right time and right place.
She made a lot of the wardrobe and wooden furniture models.
And quite a bit of luck, and I ended up getting an internship that way. I guess I was 17 at the time.
So you've got a whole company that's familiar with tools.
Bailey did way more than just audio and soundtrack. Come on.
Tools and a whole process, and then we just started over. Like, we rebuilt the tools and we rebuilt the engine. So we had this long period of time where we could sort of take our time on design, and so we spent a lot of time working on story and just trying to figure out how to make this thing time working bigger, like somehow more epic.
City 17 minimap? City 17 minimap? City 17 minimap 2. Government building, train station.
And discussions eventually led to this idea that So in Half-Life 1,
got all
you
that before?
open this portal, some strange rift to another dimension, and we thought, well, what if that broadcasts the signal to the universe that's like, oh, there's this planet there, it's free air and water. And so then we sort of came up with this idea of, well, there's this mega organization that's resource starved, and they're just gonna come and take it if they can.
How many years passed between? 6?
Yeah.
So I would say the first 2 years, we tried a lot of things. And a lot of those stories
Oh my god, it's Cave Johnson.
that we had initially didn't have really any carryover from Black Mesa or any of that.
There was originally going to be three different alien races, like the bugs or religious ones, and the antlions actually came out of that bug race that was supposed to be a much bigger part of the game.
It had 3 alien races, the warrior aliens, the insect aliens, and the spy aliens, and it had like a Prague-like city, which ended up being the closest thing to City 17. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of writing music. You know, everyone was sort of riffing ideas on, well, what if we did this or tried that? I remember we were really ambitious at the beginning. I remember we designed, 4 cities at one point? Prague, Jerusalem, Chicago, Los Angeles, I believe. We had an Arctic base, an underwater base, an icebreaker ship, an airplane sequence that crashed into a high-rise, which we cut right after 9/11. We had Combine base.
That's so crazy.
The air exchange, which is where they were taking, you know, the atmosphere from Earth. We had a train depot and so on. So we really obviously had to scale back.
It wasn't all City 17.
Too lazy to skip.
Open.
At one point, Prague, Jerusalem, Chicago.
So it's not, holy shit, it's not that they discovered different art styles, they were different cities. The city underneath the Vertigo Tower would have been Chicago. But they never... It was an iteration on City 17. They were different cities. They had different art styles for each of the cities.
Alright. Alright, let's play video games. My stomach hurts.
Different art styles for shit. And then the 3 alien races: warriors, religious, spies. So like think that female assassin. We're gonna be here a long time. And then
dude, you have to buy that with real money.
Antlines. Holy shit.
So, Los Angeles, I believe, we had an...
Dave Riller knows so much about the air exchange because Dave Riller was the one that mapped the air exchange.
Arctic base, an underwater base, an icebreaker ship, an airplane...
Arctic base would have been weather control. Underwater base is Kraken base. Icebreaker ship is Borealis.
Plane sequence that crashed into
the C-130 into the Vertigo,
which we cut right after 9/11. We had several combine bases in the wasteland. We had the air exchange, which is where they were taking, you know, the atmosphere from Earth. We had a train depot and so on. So we really obviously had to scale back what we were trying to do. But, you know, that's okay to go a little bit nuts at the beginning.
I saw it almost as like sophomore anxiety, maybe. You know, like, oh wow, we have to surpass Half-Life, and Half-Life was important, you know, and so it was like this like unbounded ambition.
And we kept asking ourselves, and Gabe kept asking, well, how is this Half-Life? Where, you know, when you have a silent first-person narrator, you could tell people this is Gordon and throw that character into literally any environment and say, yeah, this is Half-Life. But if the environment is telling you that that's the case, you're not. It's very arbitrary. So we wrestled.
Oh, that's the one we saw earlier.
Slowly, the sort of grab bag of characters we had, we started.
Eli's Dan, is this new art?
So we wrestled with that a long time. It's very arbitrary. So we wrestled with that a long time. Slowly, the sort of grab bag of characters we had, we started.
Eli's Dan, is this new art? See, I haven't read Raising the Bar in a very long time.
Feel like there was connections between them, and then at some point we realized, oh, we could make this out of the science team, the survivors from Black Mesa, and suddenly that for me was the idea of it's the science team. That suddenly you could put those guys anywhere, and because they have like a familial interconnectedness, and they recognize Gordon, that will make you feel like it's a continuation of this story. Like obviously Alex was totally new to that universe, but she had a father who had been in Black Mesa, and he and the other scientists were friends, and they had extended their relationship into this new world that you were in. That was kind of the click with the science team, and that was a while till we got there.
You know, much like the first one, where all the contributors were really collectively deciding on the direction, is we were really making a push to grow the team and hire new artists. You know, Zabi Ing was an influential early contributor. I think, you know, he and I were doing character designs for Gordon and for Alex and for some of the antagonist Combine characters.
At the time, I was looking at a...
Dr. Beard looked like a fucking...
The helmet...
What is it called? Star Trek? Like...
Features was based off
protagonist
gas masks from...
Not even a protagonist.
In some reference.
Just a bad person.
Doing early concepts of the new HEV suit. Like, what's Gordon gonna be now? And I had kind of just started, and so I was like, I'm gonna make this my own. It looked, I guess, kind of like the still suits in Dune, but black, and a lot more belt buckles and latex. And Gabe was just kind of like, what's this? Like, it's Gordon. I was like really proud and excited. It's like,
Tyler, I am desperate to go to bed, so
proud and like tech still just started in Dune, and so but black. Like, it's Gordon.
Who the fuck is that on the left?
Excited. Like,
Eli?
Or not, because I can't miss it.
I will upload the VOD, yeah.
Why is it not orange? You know, it's like, or something to that effect of essentially like, why are you giving up this iconic part of the character?
People love it.
Yeah,
That
people love
would.
that. So what are you doing? And it's like, you know, I was like, yeah, I guess he's right. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and ended up with what shipped.
And we had like, I don't know, so many creatures that we tried and abandoned, you know, not because they were bad, because we had better things to pursue, you know, more like there were the Sactics, the Cremator, the Crab Synth, the Stalkers
like
as an enemy.
We had a little bit in the game.
Yeah,
right?
we shipped the Stalkers, but not as an adversary that you fought.
Yeah, there was definitely an evolution of how biological versus how synthetic a lot of the creatures in Half-Life 2 were, and I was always hoping to get to a space where it was ambiguous, you know, where you couldn't quite tell if this was created or if it had grown or if it was natural or synthetic.
You guys knocked it out of the park with the Cremator, though. Here's the thing. 99% of the cut enemies and cut monsters or characters or creatures or whatever you want to call them, I get it. Like that thing, that thing looks fucking weird. But you had it with the Cremator. The cream, you knocked it out of the fucking park with the cremator.
Biological versus synthetic. A lot of the creatures in Half-Life 2 were, and I was always hoping to get to a space where it was ambiguous. You know, where you couldn't quite tell if this was created or if it had grown or if it was natural or synthetic.
There was some synths I did that never shipped. Actually, we did ship them. They were at the end of the game when you're going through the Citadel. I had designed these synths that no animator could figure out how to actually move because they weren't built to move.
And much like some of the
Shout out to Matt Wood wearing a
built to move. No animator could figure out how to actually move because they weren't built to move.
And much like some of the
Shout out to Matt Wood wearing a Little Kitty Big City hoodie. Rep your shit, Matt. Love it.
environments that we've seen, you know, released in the leak that were very dark. Some of the early Half-Life stuff was also very dark. You know.
Wait. Is this dude talking about the leak as it pertains to our cult? Like, huh? They never talk about. Are you kidding?
And much like some of the environments that we've seen, you know, released in the leak that were very dark, some of the early Half-Life stuff was also very dark. But at the time, video games were very dark.
In the interim, before we hired Fletcher, and before Victor was there, because it was the old environments,
Yeah.
right? I don't remember how it came about that they built this level, but the idea was there was some looting going on. And the idea was you're in this little alley and you see a citizen, you hear a voice saying, TV! Free TV! Like they just got into the TV store and there's the citizens and the cops are fighting and you see a citizen run past you holding a TV set and he goes, get one, get a TV, get yourself a TV. And then he runs off down the thing and you go in another courtyard and there's a cop with a nightstick and a citizen and they're like having a fist fight. And it's interesting because the NPCs are negotiating their bounding boxes and there's some animation like how difficult it is to contact.
We captured everything. We took pictures of whiteboard design sessions.
Since this is gonna take forever, we'll go ahead and rate this as well. I can't even see it in here. Hydra? Oh, they're bringing back Hydra, I guess. Catwalk, Hydra's new knockoff. Bassin. Ravels, Grey Pipe, Caveat. Hydras versus Fire, Finale. You get a weapon, I guess? Screw? Surrogates. Hydra, Manhax. Do not erase. I can't read that.
Feral Citizen. Virtual Scientist. Metrocop helmet as physics object. We documented everything. When did he say that?
Interesting because the NPCs are negotiating their bounding boxes and there's some animation like how difficult it is to contact.
We captured everything.
He says that at 12:57, and it's Dave.
We took pictures of whiteboard design.
I'm gonna have to download the 4K file and extract frames and then do a slight, very, very conservative AI upscale on it.
Sessions, there were
That fucking guy. Victor, this is bullshit. Okay.
really crude drawings and ideas.
Oh, wait. Oh. Oh.
For some reason, if you hold escape, then let it go.
2001. Oh no, 2002. Is this early 03? The red dots are like, we're probably gonna cut that. We've already seen this from what I know. Explain your thoughts? Impossible. No, not right now. This is from late 2002. Late 2002, they still had Eli's base. After Ravenholm. You get to the Ravenholm from the quarry, from the canals. The Breen Plaza is still here.
Some of the
It keeps going. Oh my god, it keeps going. Okay.
What are these guys doing, man?
This is Kraken base. This is fucking Kraken. Shit! This is the flow of Kraken base.
Don't know.
The stuff from the very beginning made it all the way to the end. You know, Ravenholm, Antlions, Dog, Kleiner's Pet Head Crab, and
Yeah, these guys are dog shit, bro.
so fun in the moment that how could they not?
God damn it.
The other thing that was really memorable is I remember we started making the world really dystopian, really dark at the beginning, and some of the concept art shows that. We didn't think players would enjoy spending 20 to 40 hours in such a dark and a kind of oppressive setting. So
Why is Kraken base such a big why is Kraken base such a big deal? Because very, very little of Kraken base in general. Right? And so a lot of restorations of Kraken base are guesswork. Just straight up. There's very, very little out there. And that's the whole flow of what the level
considerably over time, but you know, still maintained the feeling of a security state.
So I was trying to like get all these cool ideas that the team had already when I arrived.
This is the inspiration of Parapetia,
and
yeah.
streamline them. You know, instantly I think we were
So it's a lost level.
friends with Mark Laidlaw.
Yeah.
We had a common sort of vision and fantasy. Orwell-like city, and then slowly, you know, I brought contact.
Well, they have one tank.
And not because, like, I don't know every single piece of Half-Life 1 concept art, but I don't think that what I just saw I've ever seen before.
They demoted me to bronze 5.
Sort of vision and fantasy to create a Orwell-like city.
I've seen that. I've never seen this.
And then slowly, you know, I brought context behind that. The idea that we can place this in an anonymous Central Eastern European city.
I've seen that.
Which is a perfect setting.
Diva ruined the...
In these countries, there were so many waves of invasions. You know,
Look at this, look at this.
We had the Russians, and now why not the aliens?
And one of the first maps I remember working on was called Test Room Standards. On Half-Life, every level designer kind of had their own idea of how big stairs were, or how big steps were going to be, or how big a button was. Make sure we had some consistency. Another thing that was sort of important was just getting more people to go on field trips and going to do research. Because I think a lot of the level designers on Half-Life 1, you know, just were building very abstractly, and so we wanted to have some more grounding in reality and have more realistic proportions, and also just get textures were going from hand painted to more photographic. And so
we would go out and collect a lot of the pictures for those textures to start building for our new library.
I joined Half-Life 2 probably a year after it had started. I know that it was at least a year because I was put on Borealis, which was like everybody else had disowned. But then I came along and said, oh, well, I guess this is now your problem. So I started on Borealis, and of course I failed at that too. That eventually got cut.
Yeah, so I came in having had experience doing game AI. I was at Looking Glass Studios. For the biggest thing, that there was a lead program on Thief, Dark Project, VDA for that, AI for that too. And actually my first thing is they handed Borealis to me to do
after I finished?
To do the AI for the guy that you're supposed to walk through the Borealis ship with.
There was a bunch of work put into it. We even went on an icebreaker ship to get reference. As soon as we started to put it together, we realized how unbelievably tight the space was, and you could never make any kind of really interesting combat in it, and so it just withered on the vine right there.
I mean, when I started, there was that document that was the tech wish list.
Yes.
It was just this very bare bones bullet list of tech features. And I mean, I think it was like 6 years of work to build that tech list and then realize it into a product and implications of it, you know?
So this was a main feature that the light felt very, very realistic and intuitive because of the source engine and the work, the collaboration between artists.
These guys are like, why? We don't even. These guys are stupid, bro. They don't want to win. We have like one tank.
Using was wrong, and not only that, the math that everybody was using was wrong. And then as I started to correct it, and
oh my god, that's just so much.
It's fucking annoying.
Somebody went back to the builds.
I realized just how bad it was. And then
Whatever, bro.
And suddenly everything looked great.
Just finish this quick.
The hardware guys, the people who made hardware accelerators, that fundamentally the math was wrong on their.
Oh, now he switched. Oh, good job. Yeah, you really got him.
I could not convince the guys. Finally, we hired Gary McTaggart and Charlie Brown. Those guys had enough pull and enough.
This fucking runs lava, bro.
Charlie and I met at college at the University of Florida. We were both getting computer science degrees.
Come on, man.
To go work at 3D FX.
I just want to lock in like at the last second.
I think, Charlie, you actually graduated, didn't you?
I graduated and then followed you, and I was 17.
Yeah.
There were three kind of principles. One was to make something that was immersive, visually really rich and appealing, something more like you would see in a film, and the art direction and the technology to make that happen. Second one was to have characters that you cared about, so basically that could that mattered in the world instead of just being signposts. Third was to have a responsive environment with physics that mattered.
I think that I, maybe more than other people, realized just how big of a task we were setting for ourselves. So I was a little bit daunted by that.
We felt the pressure from Gabe actually to double down and make something even grander than Half-Life 1. Therein lies the sort of little bit of the trap of Half-Life 2's development story, which went from being a pretty quick, let's figure out how to do this, to like a 6-year, slog.
Yeah, and it was like, 6-7 days a week, 10 to 14 hours a day. Yeah, we're gonna cut your features. Sorry, it's just not worth it.
So I ended up being really the point person working with the FBI.
I remember coming in that morning and figuring it out, and it just felt like somebody just punched me in the gut.
What's this mean? Like, can we still keep working on the game? Like, is someone just going to release the whole game tomorrow?
I definitely was not shielded from that.
I remember one conversation with Gabe, which is like, he was like, so how fucked are we? Yeah, we're kind of screwed.
The company was pretty close to going bankrupt. I was pretty close to going personally bankrupt. It's like there was no money left.
I can't think of another case when that happened. Yeah, a real bullshit move.
Are we allowed to cry in this documentary? That's what I want to know.
I am 19 minutes through a 2-hour documentary. What the fuck is happening?
Remember, we shipped Half-Life 1, and, the world loved it, and we're just super happy. Like, yeah, we did this thing, and
And we had a big meeting, and Gabe looks at me and goes like, "So all the animations are terrible. How are you going to make Half-Life 2 better?"
In Half-Life 1, we made what were at the time significant improvements, but still they were fairly robotic and mechanical, and so we had to go and do a huge amount of work on the animation system and on the facial animation system and coming up with authoring tools.
And the line.
A lot of this was level designer design, like figuring out how to build atmosphere. We knew that we wanted to start you off seeing the Citadel right away, and we wanted to introduce you to the city with this great voice acting from Robert Culp. We wanted to finally do real characters. We knew that from Half-Life 1, the way that players would respond to having any character talk to them was like way beyond the reaction that we expected. Like when we figured this out in playtesting, like if Barney would follow you around and shoot things, you just love this guy, and you love the scientist, and you love these characters. So we knew we wanted to just bring that like way up to the next, like levels beyond what we could imagine.
And the theory was if we could make a character who could act realistically, that would help the player make an emotional connection to the other characters in the game. And at the time we decided we were going to do that, not only did none of the technology work, but I would go talk to industry professionals and they would tell me not to bother because you couldn't do it. Luckily found a research work done in the 70s by Dr. Paul Ekman, and he had just broken down how the face works and how humans make expressions. And he had this incredibly wonderful, formal, clinical description of what a face does and the sorts of things that normal people do with their face.
I tried this experiment with putting a grid on Scott Lynch's face and shooting him from the front and the side so that we could get points from this grid in 3 space for the geometry, and we got shots of his texture, and we found a good way to model a reasonable head, of his geometry, and then project the texture onto it, and then abstract it or stylize it enough so that it didn't look totally photographic, but it looked like a kind of a real person.
Occasionally, when somebody hears the history, it will, generate a light bulb. But no, I don't get accosted.
No one's asking you for beers or anything?
No, or buying me beers.
We added Ken's eye tech to that, which was amazing because he really modeled and he went deep into the research of how eyes work.
Eyeballs was about 9 months, just on eyeballs, but you have to do each step. You have to get the shape of the eye right. You have to get how the eyelid gets pushed by the cornea and the ball of the eye. So as your eyes move around, all your lower lid, your upper lid, all of those get shifted slightly. It's all automatic. It was wonderful. The day I got it working, the characters went from looking like interesting dolls to, oh my God, this is working.
They would ask for surprising things at times. Like they wanted really fine control over looking at named objects in the 3D world, no matter what direction the actor is facing. So you had to figure out things about, maybe the upper body needs to turn and the head needs to turn and the eyes need to turn.
So we're in the elevator coming back from Starbucks to get morning coffee.
Holy shit.
And we saw this face, and it's like, that's him. That's the scientist. And he was an accountant in the firm below ours in Kirkland.
Yeah, nothing kind of blows your mind when you've been working all day on this character in your game, and all of a sudden you get on the elevator and you're like, holy crap, it's him.
I once ran into him at the airport.
So we cast people that were real change vendors in front of supermarkets. We cast waiters in restaurants.
When I was in junior high school, I took karate classes, and that was my old karate instructor.
Andy Lundeen said, hey, there is a guy holding a sign for work at this exit on 520 every day who has this great face, and he took a picture of his face, and he stopped and asked if he could. And so it's like, oh, this is great. I think this guy's Eli. We brought him in and, paid him a couple $100, which is what we were paying people back then, and so that's where he came from.
Erdine Gasic was a Bosnian friend I knew from school. He was like We want the East European contingent and stuff too, so it was pretty interesting.
We wanted anybody to feel a part of the world when they're playing it as a player, and so, we found people from pretty much every skin color, different ages, male and female, equal numbers of males and females.
Oh.
Sadly for them, they all had to share the same voice actor.
Woke?
Sadly for us, too.
We dropped a crate of rockets coming across the plaza. We hoped for one more fighter to help storm that barricade. We never dreamed it would be you.
And Climb Slab was the first prototype that we did of how characters could work together in a scene.
Yeah, it was like a proof of concept. We kind of had to make that work.
It's just that I know he's not, but I can't not look at that guy and be like, what is Cave Johnson doing there? Cave, you don't work at Valve. You sell fucking shower curtains. What are you doing here, Cave?
Everything we could into it at the time to test all the technology and then know from there what can we do, what else can we do with this.
Turning it into a performance that would be engaging rather than just audio, radio play kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, that was the point where...
Damn.
Oh, that's okay.
That scene was where it all started to...
Wait, what is this? Is this from... When's already found a trigger that is enough to get started?
I thought she had an alt.
Come together all our theories and hopes for what the experience might be.
And it all went completely smoothly out of the box. It was amazing.
The most difficult technical aspects are really kind of boring. They're okay, the character is running through AI and now they need to jump in and do, hug another character. Now they need to pick up something from the desk, and that thing on the desk can move, and where the character is can move, and where the player is can move, and everything about this whole scene can move dynamically. And to get to that stage where it just looks right is this huge technical challenge and artistic challenge. But once it's done, it's just amazing.
Gordon, you're looking at me again.
Gordon, snap out of it.
Staring at me again.
You're staring at me again.
Warming up nicely.
Was Jeff Keighley involved in this doc at all?
Swap out the polarizer.
No!
I remember when we got Fletcher on, and he would kind of teach us about how they did things at Disney, and they would bring in acting coaches for the animators. What does sarcasm look like? Certain expressions, and there's a timing to those expressions. And
when you have a scene with multiple characters, it's not always the person talking that's doing the acting. Right? Everybody's, even though you may be looking at Kleiner because he's the one talking, every character in that scene around you, behind you, they're all doing stuff because not everybody's going to be looking at the same place.
Yeah, I remember even just like when Alex teleports and then you see her show up on the screen, right?
Oh, that was incredible.
Heads over, gives them a quick kiss, and what? Like it tells you so much about the relationship without having.
And so much to fucking
like heavy
try to focus on.
Handed stuff. So.
Jake was a random.
I died by the dumbest shit. The fucking electric fence.
Jake was incredible.
Jake was incredible. Like,
Jake
miss
was
that guy.
One of a kind.
Yeah,
Jake
miss that guy.
was incredible.
Amazing technical animator.
Yeah, I mean, Jake was one of those guys that, whatever needed to be done, he would figure it out and just make it happen, with it.
It'll just get done correctly.
I think also the context of when all this was taking place, like the problems that he was helping solve were just things that weren't being done. Even something as simple as...
Okay, so some of the builds that they're showing here, is Danny using LeakNet here? Somebody in this chat would be able to pick that out. Are these unique builds like that they pulled off of Valve Archive, or is Danny pulling assets from the community?
Juno Gunner, I just realized the name.
LeakNet, yeah. Okay.
Passing someone an object between two characters sounds super simple, but actually really complex, especially back then.
Yeah.
And so
Widescreen
really
clips of the older models are from an older build they were given. Wait. He was given an old build. LeakNet is the community fixed build of the Half-Life 3 beta leak.
Like, how do we even do this in collaboration with the programmers?
Zobby wanted to do a goo thing, so I worked on the shader for that. I did the stuff for that and all the little monitors everywhere that showed other scenes. Did the refraction shaders and the supporting code for that. The shaders didn't really have conditionals or loops or anything like that, so we would unroll it all and compile a bazillion shaders. It got to the point where it was so many shaders and it took so long to compile that I think Mike DeSalt implemented distributed building system. Everyone's machine in the company was running something that could sit there and compile shaders all the time or do lighting for the levels or whatever.
It's all like any opportunity to kind of add to the visual storytelling, I think was...
Yeah, and I think we hid the first G-Man sighting there.
He was one, oh, that's right, he was one of the monitor who would flip to him. Yeah.
And then he'd just walk out of frame.
The moment where you see him makes you...
It's crazy how his natural speaking voice... Oh my god, I know, it's like, it's not a big deal. I've spoken to him, but it's just like the moment he starts speaking, it's like, oh, that's Barney!
Really? He recognized him as Barney?
Where you see him makes you realize there must be a lot of moments where you didn't know he was watching you. He's not Big Brother. That doesn't make sense to me that he would be a Big Brother, because that's sort of industrial and bureaucratic. And this is much more intimate. He's always over your shoulder. Waiting for the moment to speak.
It's him.
That's where I think he...
That's crazy.
That's so fucking great.
My name is Mike Shapiro, and I am...
That's Mike Shapiro.
I am also Barney. And, you know, Barney's not... He's not that far from... You know, G. Gordon, like, he's not that far from where I live. You know, he's so fallible and you know, he's always tripping over himself, and he's just such a good guy, you know? Not necessarily the most capable, but just really there for you.
God, I miss...
Get that thing away from
I
me.
miss Barney so damn much.
I think early on I had a sense that G-Man knew a lot and was taking care of a lot that we didn't quite understand, was kind of enjoying fucking with people and massaging reality in a way that he had a unique capacity to do. There were also aspects to him that I knew pretty early on, like his relationship to time is very different than you or I would think. In my mind, he could literally be in two places at once, and so sometimes there was a kind of an implied hitch in his timing, or he's experiencing 2 or 3 different moments at once, and that might be funny for a reason that you don't know because you're only in one time with him at a moment. The right man.
That's fucking crazy. I have never thought about that.
Oh, he just leaked Half-Life 3.
The way he does, because he's experiencing multiple things at the same time. So it's not a dialect thing, it's a perception thing.
I don't know if I should play more. It's getting...
To be human, it's superhuman.
It's getting,
to be normal human.
It's getting really, fucked.
That's his view. Yeah, that's true. That is his view. But, I mean, come on. Mark is not writing the Half-Life 3 story. Shapiro gets to choose some stuff about the G-Man. He is the G-Man. Are you kidding me? If Mike has an idea for the G-Man, he's gonna tell Wolpa and Pinkerton and be like, I don't know if the G-Man would be... You know what I mean? They would take his advice. That's sick. Go back to Mike speaking in the voice again.
Damn, bro.
Really there for you. That's sort of industrial and bureaucratic. And this is much more intimate. He's always over your shoulder, watching, waiting for the moment to speak.
You see, him saying speak and not arrive is so fucking G-Man. Because it's like, I'm waiting for the moment to, and I'm waiting for him to say arrive, but then saying something I'm not expecting. That is so oh my god. I am a 27-year-old man. I have a mortgage. I own a car. I have a college degree. I feel like I'm 10 years old right now. Oh, man. I'm married!
Jiva used to exist here, by the way.
Oh my god, I feel like I felt when I was, like, starting the...
Then they put Kiriko and then they got rid of Kiriko and then put her here.
I'm absolutely gonna cry during this. See, here's the thing, right? These last few months have been hella hard for numerous reasons, and it's none of your damn business, but a lot has happened, personally. And so you know how sometimes you know you're due for a cry? I'm coming into this in a mental state of, like, I'm kind of already due for a cry to, like, let some stuff out. I'm coming into this with that. I want to hear it again.
Industrial and bureaucratic. And this is much more intimate. He's always over your shoulder, watching. Wait.
I guarantee you Danny is behind the camera going... Drama Queen Tyler.
Speak.
Oh my god. You can hear Danny in the background being like, The render was made by... Okay, so it's not a new render from Half-Life 3. That's
My name is Mike Shapiro, and I am G-Man. I am also Barney. And, you know, Barney's not... He's not that far from, you know, G. Gordon. Like, he's not that far from where I live. You know, he's so fallible and you know, he's always tripping over himself. And that...
Half-Life Alyx was amazing, right? But Half-Life Alyx was not a Half-Life Alyx was like a celebration of Half-Life for people that could afford it. And it also wasn't really Half-Life. It was kind of its own thing. With like a 10-second, with like a 2-minute thing at the end where everybody cried. This feels like a celebration of us. You know what I mean? This feels like Valve going, yeah, we see you guys. We see you guys here. Here. We know. We go. We know. Here. You know what I mean?
That's such a good guy, you know? Not necessarily the most capable, but just really there for you.
Get that thing away from me!
It's new art made by the guy who did the old art. Okay.
I think early on I had a sense that G-Man knew a lot.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So I'm gonna put up Shapiro's take on G-Man. Starts at 30 minutes and 5 seconds.
And this guy, you know?
Right. You know what I mean?
That's such a good guy, you know? Not necessarily the most capable, but just really there for you.
Get that thing away from me!
It's new art made by the guy who did the old art. Okay.
I think early on I had a sense that G-Man knew a lot.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So I'm gonna put up Shapiro.
And fucking with people and massaging reality in a way that
not
he
Shapiro.
had a unique capacity
He's not Ben,
to do.
he's Mike.
There were also aspects to him that I knew pretty early on, like his relationship to time is very different than you or I would think. In my mind, he could literally be in two places at once. So sometimes there was a kind of an implied hitch in his timing, or he's experiencing 2 or 3 different moments at once, and that might be funny for a reason that you don't know because you're only in one time with him at a moment.
The right man in the wrong place can...
I'm gonna be real. That man should be getting so many more parts than he does. I don't know if it's because he just doesn't try out for parts. He should be acting in like fucking like who's the fucking the Nathan Drake guy? He should be like as ubiquitous in the industry. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Why is it that like I know him from Half-Life, Blood 2, Dota 2, and Horizon Forbidden West, and then that's like it. Come on.
Wait, isn't Forbidden West?
Started.
Shit, now I want to play it.
He's gonna interview Merle. Will it be at Valve?
Her and stuff.
And of course, she really came to life when we found Merle Dandridge.
Ah!
We could feel her already as a partner in creating this character. I think coming out of that, she's just got a creative relationship with this character. And she's going to bring a lot to it.
I feel like she was really able to bring a warmth and humor into her deliveries too. That other people, it was more like
no Merle
like
interview.
In a game,
She's very.
She did this great job of bringing.
She's very busy,
but
like
warmth into it.
Please tell me that means that they're like. Yes, she's going to play Alex in Half-Life 3, and we only hired, they're going to give the bullshit excuse. We needed a younger Alex.
And now we're sitting ducks unless we can get this thing running. Come on, Dr. Kleiner, is it going to work or not?
No, there's nothing to be nervous about. Let's see. The massless field flux should self-limit and
Hey, Harry S. Robbins!
My name is Harry Robbins. I'm known as Hal Robbins. I have a stage name of Dr. Hal. My only doctorate is in theology from the Church of the Subgenius, which I'm involved in.
Church of the Subgenius is a performance art, religious parody organization that actually holds sacraments and ceremonies and shit. Look into, if you would all want to jump down a fun rabbit hole, look into the Church of the Subgenius, okay?
Well, I think perhaps Mark was familiar with the things I do on the radio, and he thought my voice would be good for it. I have a monthly Ask Dr. Hal show on Twitch and Zoom, and I'm also on a couple of radio shows. Well, I'm a graphic artist. I've worked for DC Comics for their Paradox Press line. Well, I have some patrons who I do painting for. I've painted many things for them. I played Dr. Isaac Kleiner after I did the voice of a number of different scientists. I try to pronounce all the words. I make sure to aspirate consonants. For example, I don't say didn't the way most people do, even newscasters today. I always make sure to say didn't. Perhaps it sounds archaic that way. Mark wrote archaic expressions into my dialogue, and I would say things like, oh, fie, and so forth.
No, not up there! No! Careful, Lamar. Those are quite
I'm
fragile!
gonna get made fun of by the end of
Oh,
this shit.
fine. It'll be another week before I can coax her out of there. Yeah, longer if we're lucky.
Barney, you're not an animal person!
It was always pleasant. I was always well treated. They were always patient. Even if I mispronounced something which was obvious, they would correct me and I would pay attention. And I always try to be as close as possible to a one-take wonder so they don't have to do it again. But that enabled them to do it many times, and so they had a lot of things which arose from that, and some of these are the things I'm asked to say by fans, which are inexplicable to people who don't know the game. Like, you want this guy to say, have you seen my coffee cup? And why do we all have to wear these ridiculous ties?
I don't like that he's getting. I don't like that he's old.
So in the same way that we thought it was important in Half-Life 1 that when you shot a wall, that we put decals on the wall to indicate that you shot it. We wanted to say, okay, what happens when you throw a grenade at a bunch of boxes, right? The world itself needed to be more reactive to everything you did.
We used some third-party code, but Jay Stelly was the one who really wrote the wrapper on that integrated it.
And physics was even early in the project was pretty successful. Right? Once we got over the initial thing of like things falling over, when we started adding breakable objects, things you could script in Hammer. We added vehicles, sound cues from all the objects, and the AIs, you could drop things.
What build is this from? What build is this from?
I was at the monitor for Eli too.
TV thing is from 2002. What build is this from? Because this car TV thing is legendarily difficult to get working properly. Danny, what do you have? What did they give you, Danny?
Things on them and crush them, things like that. All of those behaviors. Once
what
we got,
build is that from? Wait, what the fuck?
just a few of those things in, that was really.
Is that LeakNet?
For everyone who worked on.
LeakNet does not have physics that smooth. What was that from? VCC thinks the footage is a mega build. I can ask. Why don't I just fucking ask? I just asked, where did you get the footage of the older builds of Half-Life 2? Was it all from the community fixes of the leak?
Half-Life 2, masses got broken down into a set of scales that I assume someone's already talked about. No? Okay.
Well, you say.
So well, yeah. All right. So this is, the question is whether it's bigger than a bread box or smaller than a space station.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's.
When you went to debug something and the text says, "Oh, this thing weighs as much as a racehorse."
Yeah. You knew it was more than a bread box.
You're like, well,
but not as much as a space station.
I think so, but I don't know in the scale if it's closer to this or closer to that.
Hey, Adrian, what the fuck happened to Underlord? I love you, man, but what happened to Underlord?
At some point, I think it was David Spira. Yeah. So you could look at any entity in the game and turn on a bunch of debugging text about it. And one of the most important things to get right in every object in the game that was physically simulated was its mass, because that dictated an enormous amount of things, like the amount of force it would apply to something else when it impact, when it hit them, and its response when it's hit by
fuck this game. Fuck this damn.
Mass is just a number. Like, what does this mean to anyone? And so I think it was David Spira who found online some list of masses and objects, and he just brought them.
I should have just left. I should have just goddamn left raw.
T-shirt.
I knew if it took 7 minutes, I would have gotten like a shitty ass match like this. Is that Seamus?
The make some noise logo. Adrian, you big fan of improv comedy? If so, fuck yeah, dude. You see that Very Important People season 2 just started? Hell yeah.
Like 100 bracket racehorse or something. And so over time, like, you all just got that locked in, and because it was like a logarithmic scale, it went from things like, bread box, paint can or something, up to like space station.
It
the
looks.
moon.
It doesn't look like the Make Some Noise official merch. It looks like the merch that Josh Rubin is selling. Yeah.
What do I do with this? At this point, it's just keyframe at that point.
Yeah, so there would be many like stations where we'd say, so I don't know, do you think that's more like a racehorse or the space station?
I feel so special knowing
the very
that.
first
I knew
physics
about
puzzle that we put in the game, from a development calendar standpoint, was the washing machine.
And I'm dead.
The washing machine into the hopper and raise the ramp for the airboat to jump. Because we felt like we had this section of relentless pressure with the attack helicopter. Watching players play test.
These guys are dog shit, bro. Just finish this.
You see the very first training of it in the on-foot canals with the teeter-totter.
I don't even have a fucking tank.
Blocks on.
Who's Rudy? What is Rudy playing?
And it's sort of training of like, hey.
Can't even see for fuck's sake.
levers and balance and, you know, create paths for yourself. And then, yeah, later the buoyancy puzzle, we added that one after the washing machine puzzle. And it was just kind of like, oh, you can connect masses with invisible pulley systems and then build little machines that way.
Right, the gravity gun was kind of this, we weren't even sure we were going to ship it in the game. It was like a development tool. And so it was like this beam, you could reach out and grab things and
this looks
pull
like
them toward
the
you
Mega
or
Build.
reposition them, you know, drop them.
What's
grab
wild
them
is a
from
new
another
Mega
point.
Build's coming out
But
this
then,
weekend, and
we
it's
talked
much
about
bigger.
simplifying it and just making
And
it
I have
where it was
access to
just
it, and it is
pushing on things and pulling on things. And where could we go with that?
And the first draft of Ravenholm wasn't really about physics so deeply, right? We ended up reorganizing the game to put Ravenholm
Actually, no,
after.
this looks like Mega Build because it doesn't have anti-aliasing.
No!
That looked like it had anti-aliasing.
We talked about simplifying it and just making it to where it was just pushing on things and pulling on things. And where could we go with that?
And the first draft of Ravenholm wasn't
Does
really
Mega Build
about
have moving
physics
displacements?
so deeply,
That's a
right?
good question.
We ended up reorganizing the game
I feel like
to
Vitoy's the person
put
to ask for that.
Ravenholm after you get the gravity gun. Originally, it was
New
before
edition
we would
race car, dude. Oh
park
my
the
gosh.
airboat at the dock of Ravenholm and then get out and go explore
What the hell is the
Ravenholm.
Mega Build? Don't even worry about it. That looks like LeakNet. Yes, this right here
like
looks
a horror
just like
area.
LeakNet.
Since in a lot of ways Half-Life was a horror game and the horror was kind of leaching out of Half-Life 2, so we at least wanted one environment that was just scary. And then we had a design meeting where Doug Woods said, you know, creature with a shotgun, and it was like, oh, yes.
The important thing to know is like we didn't sit down and design Ravenholm as like the tutorial for all those things. It kind of kept getting things over time. And then after we got more physics working, we had this idea that there would be traps for the zombies in there that were physics. And there were a bunch of them, and they didn't all make it to the final game. And then some of them did work though. And you know, we had to build a system for cutting the zombies in half once we added the propeller traps, and we had to make them the right height so you could crawl under them or the zombies could crawl under them. And then someone had the idea, well, what if the top half can keep going and it can get you under there? You know, we tried that and that was great. Someone had the idea of saw blade, and Ravenholm like already existed, and we ended up like based on this behavior happening in another level, like built the saw blade and went and put it back in Ravenholm.
Ravenholm was probably some of the most fun I had working on Half-Life 2. The whole idea behind Ravenholm, and that we were
Excuse me.
in a position where they have to rely on physics
Laura W.
and
made those things.
the context of the objects around them. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if the zombie, it's going to take him 30 more seconds to get to me, but he's got like a barrel right now. Like, what if he could swap that at me? So that was definitely something that was just like, we have physics now. This would be a cool thing to do with it, and it'd be a thing that would make sense and a thing that would be scary and fun.
One of the things that John was like extremely strong at was little touches, like I think we called them puzzlets.
We did call them puzzlets.
Like they weren't puzzles, they were puzzlets.
Yeah, it's just a thing that takes you between 5 and 60 seconds to resolve. And at the end, you either get something or you feel a certain way, and it was really a big part of making sure that like minute-to-minute gameplay was interesting. Yeah, he was good at that.
We actually did this as an exercise of like, okay, take, you know, all the elements in the game and have a grid of, you know, rows and columns, and make sure that there's a
Shut up.
thing at each intersection of those cells, so that everything has a meaningful interaction with everything else. And where we saw empty cells, we would actually design a thing
Yeah,
like
so something we could do there.
yeah, barnacles plus grenades or whatever. You know, okay, we need to make sure that they'll eat the grenade and then blow up.
Like the reason we build these scripting level design tools, you know, it's just, it makes it accessible for all the people on the team, even if you can't write code, to like put something together, try out an idea, you know, see
Victor
what we
Schultz,
can do
thank
with
you for
this.
being
And
here.
the
I'll
entity
see you later.
system's no different, right? A lot of things the level designers just want to, like, I have this idea for something that could happen. Is that fun?
Look to your own salvation.
Every Half-Life 2 beta mod has now been delayed.
Yeah, I was on TF2 at that time, and I don't remember exactly. I think it was during 2000 maybe? Someone else has probably told you this and got the dates actually right. But at some point we all jump from TF2 over to Half-Life 2. I feel like that marks the sort of, in some ways, in retrospect, like the end of like pre-production really on Half-Life 2, and it becomes now like, let's build this thing and ship it.
I think, do we have time to finish this?
If they had shown Brotherhood of Arms footage.
It's gonna finish around like
The first thing I got told to work on was a jet ski.
maybe 2 more hours.
3 weeks trying to figure out a jet ski in first person. I was like, okay, none of this is working. I don't see how do you do this without making people sick? So I remember one weekend out of frustration, I just made the airboat. Maybe it's the Florida bit in me.
So Charlie Brown had worked on the airboat, and then we picked it up, a different group.
I didn't know that. The airboat was made out of spite. Was it originally supposed to be a jet ski? Yeah, we've always known that. And there are levels that are leaked with the jet ski in them. But I didn't know that the reason why it went from jet ski to airboat was because Charlie Brown was like, fuck this.
We started working on the canals, and we had this idea of it was going to be kind of like a lot of tricks under pressure, where, you know, you're doing like skateboarding type moves. I think it was Kelly Bailey who basically...
Kelly Bailey. That's the funniest name ever.
tricks, and I'm failing, and then I'm getting shot. And he's like, I want to be like Smokey and the Bandit. I just want to be smashing my way out. We did this whole other
Kelly
path.
Bailey is the hero of any game that he works on. You're telling me that the reason why Water Hazard has those jumps is because Kelly Bailey went, I want to be able to do that. Fuck it, cut the jet ski.
We dialed down the consequences for failing the tricks, and we dialed up the feeling of, you know, power.
Wait, what did you say?
Failing the trick. We did this whole other pass of the canals where we dialed down the consequences for failing.
Please note that any consequence of failure is merely a device that to enhance your testing experience.
I don't need your fucking retarded ass voice acting.
Absolutely refused to really stay in their airboats. They wanted to get out and look under every rock, behind every
Hazardous
tree.
water.
For those players, we had to craft enough density through the lengths of the canals to keep them entertained and happy.
Yes,
and
but
then there were
poison
people who just
water.
wanted to smash through everything and treat it like a racing sim. And so the game had to be fun and interesting for them, and sometimes that would clash.
If you stop here, we're going to give you a reward, basically, either a narrative reward.
Stop pausing.
Or
Go watch it yourself.
In-game like reward.
You know I'm here to give commentary
The
on
lambda
top
caches,
of it, right?
the lambda
Yuck.
signs, we use them a lot more in the canals, and part of that is literally because we did it afterwards. Like, I mean, I'd worked on coast maps, and we didn't have that yet.
You know, the canals are restrictive because we want you to drive this airboat through them, and we've got all these fun things to do, like you could jump over things.
If I wasn't pausing and adding my own content, this should be considered stealing from my friend Danny.
You could smash through things. The worst case scenario is you're trapped with people who have guns and they're shooting at you, and you don't necessarily
Keep
have
the
a way
stream
of
up. I'll keep the
shooting
stream
back.
up. Yeah.
So, you know, that led to, well, we need to add a weapon.
I don't think
to
there's
the
any
vehicle.
copywritten content.
Well, part of it
being played
was
right
the helicopter was such a persistent pain in your ass that we really wanted to put a bow on that whole experience and give you some vindication, some, you know, vengeance, where you get to now hunt the helicopter. So as soon as we attach it, one thing we really intentionally did is you start to drive down the tunnel and the helicopter pops down in your face and it's blocking you, and you have no choice but to just shoot it if you want it to go away, and then you see it flee. And so it's like, oh, okay, the players could connect the dots, right? Now it's my turn. So the next sequence is all about chasing the helicopter down to that final battle at the dam. I remember we worked pretty intentionally to make it the ultimate showdown between you and the helicopter, and some of it was by accident. I remember Brian Jacobson, who did a lot of the code for that, at one point it accidentally did this thing where it just spit out a ton of bombs, and we're like, that is awesome. Keep that. Make that part of the fight. You know, we tried to make it as action.
Hunter Chopper's bomb spitting was an accident. Bird on just the half.
You should do that like after the fucking stream.
We designed it to be a final exam. We
Just pausing the whole experience just so you have to write down something on a note paper is just crazy.
You learned how to shoot at it, and you learned how to shoot while driving.
You can do that while watching.
Throw those things together at you with
Or you can just
a twist.
watch it later and
Sort of like a
do a better.
A lot of good things came out of it because it was such a difficult design problem. The easy thing to do is
You can do better notes.
design, where you just say you can't go here and we're going to shoot at you and force you to fail and fail and fail until you get to see the next part of the game. It's much harder to create something where the player feels there's an evolution, they have some power and some agency, so that their skill is being rewarded and they can be creative in that restrictive environment.
So basically had a whole car, engine, down to through transmission, down in...
Okay, but yeah, what is that from? That is not Mega Build. That's Mark Laidlaw's temp dialogue.
Engine, down to through transmission, down into gearing and differentials and turning the tires. But
I like this map.
oh, we can really only go 15, 20 miles an hour. Otherwise, you would blast through the extents of the map in about 10 seconds, which wasn't going to do anybody any good. People made jumps, they made all these things. Nothing was working. So I was like, oh, you must be doing a jump. I'm just going to turn off gravity on the car for a little while and let it just go and then gradually ramp it back in so that it actually felt like you were jumping.
It was interesting how like the dynamics of the buggy was so much about like the perceived experience versus how it actually like performed.
It sounds like it's going faster than it is. So Jay and I worked really hard on these engine sounds and this fake transmission and doing all this stuff. But you're really going like 30 miles an hour maybe.
No,
so it's like someone just driving.
So like, I'm sure that we have that map. What I'm saying is, if it was Mega Build, it wouldn't look like that.
Around in first gear.
Got pulled into Coast, one, because I was interested in working on more game stuff, but two, it was the biggest, I guess, group of people utilizing the displacement tech since it was more of a terrainy thing and outdoors. And we were trying to figure out how we wanted to use the displacements, meaning we knew we wanted the things to look more natural.
It does. Why would Danny go through the trouble of downloading old beta restoration?
Those maps than our previous ones, given just displacements and.
Hello.
We were always struggling with performance and trying to figure out how to make things a little bit faster, easier, or where we could make things do what we wanted them to do, but not necessarily cost as much as they cost.
It's much faster than walking speed. So you just signed up for building a huge amount of game. People can just stop. So now you have this trade-off distance.
We got to. But from Half-Life 1, we still had the philosophy of there should be something cool around every corner. Not like a monster popping out of you, but different reasons to be engaged in the world. So they would dot the coastline with little towns, and you knew if you went exploring, you'd always get some kind of reward for that. It might be a health pack and ammo, or it might be a character interaction. So that would let the player set their own pace and feel like they get to explore the world, and they're always rewarded for that. But if they wanted to drive straight through, they could.
I worked on like the area where there's the roller mines first come in, and you know, you're going along a curving path, and then there's like they blow up all the rocks and drop stuff in front of your path to try and slow you down, and then you've got like a little house fight. There were cases early on where people would just try to drive past everything and be like, why would I stop at this if I've got a car? And so we really wanted them to like be fairly unavoidable, and so you'd have to get out and deal with taking them off your car, and then you'd, you know, be in the space. So it's really fun just, you know, jumping in there with the Combine soldiers and crafting little fight scenarios.
Steam
What
controller guy.
AI fights interesting is not that they're the smartest or the best or anything. Like, it's easy to make AI that can just perfectly shoot the player and kill them. That's not what makes them smart. It's putting on a show that makes them feel interesting. So like in that fight in particular, you go up inside of a building and you get to
I think the Half-Life 1 was way cooler.
pull you up there,
The AI.
in there, and as you go up and
then
fight
they
them,
fall through
that
the
happens. But then more guys
ceiling.
spawn outside. Like there's a bunch of windows up in that top section, and there's a crate sort of near the window. And when you go over to get that crate, they start shooting through the window at you. And it's not that the AI actually knows that you're there and starts shooting at the window the moment they see you. There's actually we have these things called bullseyes that you could place in spots, and they basically would act like a target that the AI wanted to shoot. You know, a lot of that isn't actually the AI being, you know, doing this carefully crafted thing. It's more of us thinking like, what makes this like a neat presentation for the player and gives them that sense that they need to hunker down. Like later on,
Oh, it's the wrong house.
in the same
Okay.
coastline,
Sorry.
there's a sequence where you're fighting a gunship and you're in the lighthouse, and as you go up the lighthouse, it's like sort of predicting where you are and shooting through the windows right in front of you and giving you that same sort of show. And that's all like bullseyes and things. Almost every game you play, you're developing a sense of mastery, and that actual sense of progress and mastery is the fun. Piecing it all together is like very core to what makes it fun.
Hello, Dr. Freeman. The car's all ready for you. Hop in and I'll lower you down to the beach.
We did the player drivable crane first, I think, right? And
Yes.
then we went back and used it again, you know, at the start.
That's a perfect
as
tutorial.
But yeah.
Like it's perfect training. This is how that thing works.
Yeah.
Don't forget, because it's about to happen later. You have to do it.
We did actually get very close to the base of a crane. You know, obviously you want to be in the crane, you want to be driving it, all these things. But yeah, we did get up very close to this crane again. I think it was asking somebody. We're just wanting to take some pictures for a video game.
She's
Could
Carolyn.
you just let
I'm gonna open my window. I'm gonna crack my window because it's really warm in here. Thanks.
So you,
nice and non-threatening as possible.
we need the buggy to get into a state where it was flipped, so you could have to learn to recover it and all that sort of stuff.
Like, oh, we're gonna flip it over, and then you have to proceed, you have to use the gravity gun. We're just trying to wrap that in some sort of narrative instead of just spitting some text.
I mean, the crane was a
Just trying to pass off. Raid. How dumb do you think I am? Don't show anybody or the guy will get fired. This is Boreal Aleph footage. Fucking dumbass. The fuck?
because like one of the worst case scenarios for physics is really, you know, high mass objects moving around, because they're going to apply an enormous amount of force to anything they touch. And we have a rigid body physics system, so in the real world, when giant heavy mass touches something, usually it crushes them. We can't really crush anything. So already we're in like a tricky place. The good news was we had a fixed space it could operate in, right? We could control how far you could extend the thing, and so as the level designers could look at it and be like, these are the only things that the crane will ever really be able to interact with, and so we could be pretty careful around, right, what are the things that that this magnet's going to touch, and let's make sure that at least the physics works pretty well for that.
So I worked on the bridge as one of the really early things I worked on there, which was great. Sawyer had already built the bridge. It's actually based on Deception Pass. So Deception Pass is nearby here in Washington. Coincidentally, I actually proposed to my wife there, but anyway, it's this really nice bridge that, like, if you go there, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is the Half-Life 2 bridge. The fight against the gunship and everything wasn't really all put together. It was definitely had that, like, scary, you know, fear of heights scenario of going under the bridge, but we hadn't fully fleshed it all out yet. One of the first things I did was, like, what if this was a train bridge and you had to do this, you know, play chicken against the train? And getting the timing quite right was took a little bit of
5 months
work,
tier
but
one,
hearing
thank you
the
very
like
much.
train horn come in and the moment of realization that players would have of, like, probably some people die, a lot of people probably die the first time there, but you have this, like, do I go faster or do I turn around? Like, what do I do? I don't know, it was a fun moment to create. All credit to Sawyer on coming up with the going underneath the bridge scenario. people to this day still are like, that freaked them the hell out. Like a lot of people were just, it's sort of seared in their memory, which
First
is
time I
just,
played
you know,
it,
it's
it
what we
scared
wanna
the
do.
shit out of me.
To like capture the sense of height and playing with the ambient sounds to get the, you know, just to capture the sense of being precarious and high above the ground was it was just a fun little design challenge.
David came up with that, and we play tested it. And the first time we play tested, I think the person who was play testing, their knuckles were white, and it was really tense. And of course, then someone had the brilliant idea of like, oh, they finally made it. They felt great. Now we're gonna make them go back. And the gunship, yeah, that came in, yeah. So that was always fun. There's this thing we call edge friction. So when you're moving, you have a friction that just reduces your normal movement rate by an amount. But what we would do is whenever players would get close to edges, we would increase that friction a lot so that people wouldn't accidentally fall off things. It's just not fun for the player, right? So there was definitely a bit of friction play involved there.
Gordon Freeman! Hurry, get in the basement. We're expecting gunships at any moment.
He became iconic for reasons I don't totally understand except the performance. We were calling that town Little...
How the hell does he not die?
Or Little Old New Odessa. And then I got spam email from Odessa Cubbage or something like that. It was definitely a name that came out of an email spam. And I'm like, this name is amazing. So it went straight into the game. And then John Lowry came in and acted him with his fake British accent.
Damn. Let me just send a warning to Lighthouse Point, and then I'll come right up and lend a hand.
So Odessa Cubbage had this whole problem of like training the rocket launcher. That
It's
was
a
a
fucking sniper.
The laser guiding aspect was just a nightmare to train because training in combat's always a nightmare by itself because people are under duress, trying not to die. They're focusing on some other thing that's threatening them. It's hard to observe what's going on rationally and draw lessons from it cleanly. So you always know it's going to be hard if you're trying to teach them.
Man, this shit's pissing me the fuck off.
You watch a playtester, you know, they step out and they fire a rocket at the gunship and then they duck behind cover. And so the laser dot goes onto the fence in front of them. We all hear the rocket turn around and start coming back, and so you hear
It's
like,
basically, here we go, 5, 4, 3.
and then the player looks out again at the gun.
How is that random crap?
He like looks around back at the gunship and we're like, oh! And then he ducks back again and we're like, oh my God, we hear the rocket getting louder and louder, and he peeks out again and whips off again.
An integrated part that I think has really always been important, something that Gabe introduced in Half-Life 1, was the way that we playtest and then iterate really rapidly on the playtest results. So you have dozens and dozens of people come through one section of the game and you sit there painfully, silently, taking notes while they struggle and get frustrated and totally misunderstand your brilliant design. And then you go and you fix that over and over and over again.
If your title is game designer and your design sucks, then it can be threatening, all right? Like maybe I'm bad at my job and I should get fired, right? And so a lot of the games industry never did any testing at all. With this playtesting process, that's what basically taught me design in a lot of ways. We would just, you know, we'd come up with an idea for the helicopter and then we'd be like, okay, let's put it in front of somebody and watch it happen. And then we'd very quickly start realizing that our mental model of like how people are reacting to this stuff is wildly different than what we expected.
I joined the team in January 2000. I had met Gabe when he was starting Valve, and I was at Sierra Online. But pretty much the first thing was, you know, Gabe was like, so when you were at Sierra, we did this deal with you for Half-Life and Half-Life 2. You need to go fix that, because we don't like the deal that we did. You know, the intellectual property for Half-Life was owned by Vivendi. The Team Fortress IP was owned by Vivendi. So it was get back our IP, get a better royalty rate, and then have the ability to experiment with online distribution. We knew we were going to grow the team, and then part of the deal was also that we were going to take on all of the funding responsibility for Half-Life 2, TF2, all those things. There was cash flow from Half-Life. We were figuring out how to do things here and there like expansion packs. a large part of it was Gabe tapping into his assets. He had done fairly well at Microsoft, not crazy well, but things started to get a little thin.
Really? The lawsuit. So Gabe paid for Half-Life 2 out of pocket?
So I assume you guys have talked to Scott or Eric or somebody about sort of the context of the whole.
Yes, we talked to Scott, Eric, and Gabe about it.
Sierra, by that point, had become acquired by Vivendi, had worldwide distribution rights, but only for retail packaged product.
Vivendi was licensing Counter-Strike to cyber cafes. We went to Vivendi and said, hey, this is not a big deal. Just agree that this is outside of your license. And, we've spent a little bit on attorney's fees, just cover, some tens of thousands, just cover us for that. And we'll move on and just
Yeah, they
keep going.
brought in an old attorney to interview. That's fucking nuts. Is that Barney? They've already touched on this. Yes, that was the face model for Barney.
And they wouldn't do it. I think some people at Vivendi did not like the new deal that they ended up signing. And I think there were some hurt feelings in some quarters about that deal. When we said, hey, the cyber cafe thing, you really can't do that. Coming on top of, a year of negotiations and torturous negotiations, I think that just struck an angry chord. We ended up filing the lawsuit, but really just on this narrow thing of like, hey, court, will you go just read this language and say, are they outside the license or not? And Vivendi decided to go World War III.
We filed our case in Seattle, federal court in Seattle, and they hired a law firm to defend it, of course. There was some initial skirmishing about discovery. There were some disputes and motions that had to be decided by the judge, and those went all Valve's way. And then suddenly, the law firm disappeared. They hired a big scary law firm from San Francisco. They thought, okay, Valve's had some success in this case, and so we need to change their mindset from we think we're going to be successful to we're going to be destroyed. The next thing we knew, here comes this big stack of counterclaims, everything from canceling the 2001 agreement to obtaining ownership of all the Half-Life IP, to keeping us from doing Steam, to where they included Scott and Julie Lynch and Gabe and Lisa Newell, his wife at that time, personally, as defendants.
And so it was kind of like, well, we're going to put Valve out of...
Is that the first public acknowledgement of Gabe's divorce from Valve themselves? I know this has nothing to do with anything. I mean, this happened like 2017, 2016. But like...
Look! I shot his leg!
Fucking super yacht.
He took a bow in his knee.
And then we're going to bankrupt the two of you. I think that was a lot of what they felt like was their path towards winning this fight.
Who's that?
It would have more effect and be scarier if process servers showed up at everybody's house.
What's up, man?
In the night and yeah, a real bullshit move.
It's not a legal strategy. It's basically trying to intimidate you. So in other words, they're saying not only are we going to take all this money from the company, but we're going to take money from you personally as well.
I can't think of another case when that happened.
They were certainly a lot bigger than we were.
Oh, dude, he's like, he's dominating my fucking cheeks, bro.
Funding was infinite. It felt very David versus Goliath.
Publishers at that time in the industry were used to being able to bully developers, right? And so this was really about an assertion of power as much as it was optimizing for a
fucker, piece of shit, motherfucker.
We're trying to just run us out of money, right? So they knew how much money we were making because they were doing retail distribution of our games. And so they were just trying to crank up our legal costs as just another way of draining resources from the company.
we were protected from that a lot internally, so we didn't have to think about it. They did a pretty good job of letting the team concentrate on what the team could do without worrying about the future of the company so much. I mean, that was my perspective.
So yeah, I definitely was not shielded from that. The lawsuit was something where it's like created all this uncertainty around whether the game's going to come out. Vivendi was definitely trying to use that as leverage. And so even if we finish the game, they're not going to let us release it.
There came a point where Gabe had pretty much used up his assets. And he was like, you know, should I put the house on the market? And I was like, yeah, I think it's the time where you put the house on the market if we want to keep going.
The company was pretty close to going bankrupt. I was pretty close to going personally bankrupt. We went all in. It's like there was no money left. Like,
how anxious was that for you personally?
I don't know. There's certain things that I'm kind of a weird person in a number of dimensions. Like I don't really think, oh, this is super scary. Like I don't have an emotional response to it. I just say, well, this is what we're doing. This is how, and you know, we'll see how it plays out. So I don't think it was super stressful to me, right? I mean, it didn't really bother me. Like I was diving in South Africa recently and a shark tried to bite me a couple of times. And the people around me were way more freaked out than I was. I was like, oh, a shark's trying to bite me. I should get away from the shark. People were having like,
damn, bro, he's based.
A shark, it's trying to bite somebody, you know. And I just think that's how I'm wired. I don't think it's anything that speaks to my character or anything. It's like,
okay, so here's the thing, right? Newell Hayton was in back terribly, just more, you know, at his. And he's trying to people. It's the.
So much yapping.
Yep. Yep.
I could have wasted 2 minutes of my life.
Yep.
They're this rigidly structured, you know, organization. Of course, they're going to have this really terse language for everything they do. You know, there's sort of an announcer voice in that follows you around and kind of comments status, essentially, like how alert the world is to you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. That pirate saved my ass.
Down and just basically wrote a language.
Yeah, they're literally
for that.
on his
so
yacht.
The soldiers and the Metro cops would have jargon that they would use. Then I just used that to kind of encode. So that's where like anti-citizen 1 and things like that came from. Rather.
Yeah, release that list, bud. Please. Please release that list, okay? We know what a lot of it means nowadays, but we don't know what all of it means. We know what like necrotic, you know. We know what cauterize, you know. Release the official list at some point. Thank you.
Than saying the guy with the orange suit is causing trouble. You know, it would be, you know, anti-citizen 1 breach, scalpel something, sector something. So I basically just had this little dictionary. Then I overdid it on the vocal processing because they're all wearing these, you know, these masks, and I wanted it to sound like they're in a mask.
And it was very deliberate to never have to like shoot somebody that you can see their face. And like we didn't want you killing humans. I mean, the Metro Cops are humans, but we covered all the faces up. I think it was all part of this calculated and deliberate way of saying like, look, games don't just have to be a certain way. There's so much room in what we can do here.
Well, the Metro Police and the Combine Soldiers share a lot of AI.
Hey, what up? What is it? C3A1 port test?
And so there's an internal communication among them. And one of the things we did, both for the sake of difficulty and exposition, was limit the number of squad members that could be firing at the player at any given time. I think it's 2. So if you have a squad of 4, a guy who has an opportunity to shoot at the player grabs one of those slots. And if someone else, another squad member, wants to attack the player but no slots are available, they have to find the next best thing to do, which is...
Oh, it is rarity, huh? Now I remember when I saw that name.
Please, what should be louder? Me or the thing?
He got a lot better at...
That makes a lot of sense.
Half-Life 2 used a node graph system. Hand-placed nodes by developers in the levels would describe a really super low fidelity version of the environment for the AI to use.
It enabled the level designers to sort of inject and puppeteer a little bit the AIs in ways that were just easier for them to sort of be in control, as opposed to having to grab an animator or a programmer to be able to get really cool things into the game.
Keep off the sand. You touch the sand, just
Floor is Lava is like a really obvious piece of gameplay. Physics is really fun to manipulate. We just thought like, hey, you could build your own path. We'd already seen players who enjoyed moving stuff around, like building bridges.
No achievement for you, that's true.
We don't have enough.
Probably the hardest achievement, in my opinion,
pick up
from
a
Half-Life
plank
2
and
proper.
lay it across a gap and walk across it. Like obvious stuff. We've barely done that in the whole game.
And the fact that you're laying stuff down on the floor means that the finesse required to do like precise placement wasn't necessary, right? You're like, I just want to place it here. And it doesn't matter the orientation, you just kind of jump on it and you do the next one and so on, right? And also like training was free. Like we didn't have to
I tried to sleep and your voice was too loud compared to the
like,
vid.
oh, it's fun.
Laszlo, the finest mind of his generation.
Couldn't figure that one out.
He tells you exactly how to do it.
Someone's coming. You there! Stop where you are! Stay on the rocks! Don't step on the sand! It makes the antlions crazy! Laszlo, don't move! No. Help! Dear God! Poor Laszlo! The finest mind of his generation! To come to such an end. We were heading for the Vortigaunt camp, hoping to pick up some bug baits of these damn things and leave us alone. But without Laszlo, what's the point?
You just give these NPCs a name at the moment they die and let the fans fill in their whole life story and
design some choke point or challenge or whatever, and the antline flow rate wasn't enough to make it feel chaotic enough. Like we had an atmospheric goal too. It wasn't just about like mechanically can you overcome this. You wanted to feel like your forces have stormed the walls. They're everywhere. There's chaos all around you.
Stop
And
fiddling
so a
with
lot
the
of the
autism
tuning
cube.
was
Let me
about
do my own
achieving
thing.
that
Fuck you.
feeling, not just about mechanically getting past the enemies that we'd set.
Nova Prospect was different than a lot of the maps that I worked on, at least, is that in that we had some early art prototypes that were done. We have this whole concept of like zoo maps, we call them, which are basically like little art test scenes, how they would fit together, and some basic lighting.
But by the time our cabal got to Nova Prospect, we knew we were coming in with antlines and with bug bait. And so we already knew that a bunch of stuff was going to change because we had to support you and your army of antlions fighting Combine soldiers. Antlions looked great whenever they were being shot by anyone. Like particle flex flying off, and they always looked great. And so setting them up against Combine soldiers looked great. Setting them up against turrets looked great.
Those were super fun scenarios to work on though, because having these antlines that you could just use in any way you wanted was fun. And coming from the coast, just the contrast of shrinking everything down and then just piling it full of stuff was a lot of fun.
The first time I saw one of those, I think it was Ted Backman's concept. I just thought, I can't believe that I get to use a creature this cool in level design. These guys are really, really, really fun to use.
I remember Kelly Bailey had created a short list, things like he wanted flocking flyers and he wanted a moving guard tower, which was the first description of the Strider, was a mobile guard tower. So I saw that.
Again, it was Kelly's idea.
And immediately understood that, kind of orchestrating the enemies in that way, trying to get the most. Understood that, kind of orchestrating the enemies in that way, trying
That's new.
to get the most variety and the most
We've seen that
breadth of,
before, I think.
shape and movement and experience.
tell you, the
was
Valve art-
variety. Understood that, kind of orchestrating the enemies in that way, trying
That's new.
to get the most variety and the most
We've
breadth
seen that
of,
before, I think.
shape and movement and experience.
tell you, the
was
Valve
correct
archive
way
is
to move
lacking.
forward.
The design for that first Strider map was something I came up with and I was really passionate about. It was all about like running across and just getting like one shot in your tush, right? Just as you made it through.
Even just hearing the sound, the thump, thump, thump of them walking, like, you know, okay, there's like a boss nearby. You just see the legs walking by, but you can't see the body. Like, there are so many things
Live
you can do with these guys.
9901. Thank you for the
Honestly, there were
follow.
still people on the team, I think, that were still thinking that we were going to bomb. That people are just going to not be impressed.
When did you know it was going to be good?
E3.
Yep.
E3.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing.
That's E302.
Yeah, it seems like at some point there was an E3 demo that we got together that we didn't end up showing, but at least at that point it just felt like, oh wow, we actually have made something here.
We went through and made a bunch of demos for 2002, and everybody looked at them and was like, we're still not confident about this, and we don't think we've hit the bar, so we're not going to go at all. Like, they had totally planned to go. And then when 2000,
Is that Nick?
I just remember everyone was still terrified. We were like, okay, how are we going to craft everything we've had into like a number of messages about what this product is? And like, we came up with like the core theme of each one of these movies.
Oh, do be careful.
We didn't really understand at the time, I think, the embarrassment of riches that we had. We looked at it from two angles. One was a set of technical features, a sort of conceptual listing of things that we thought were important, you know, like physics and things like that. And then the other side was content-based. What areas of the game were innovative, what areas of the story we thought were compelling, which characters we thought
How
were...
are people still learning about Greg Coomer's last name? How?
worth people paying attention to. And so it was an interesting sort of marriage of which features and which content are the best showcase for all those things. A lot of what was in the demos was rendering technology, but I think the stuff that felt the strongest to most of us at the time was really physics-based.
So something looks like wood, and it sounds like wood, scrapes like wood, floats like it, and if you shoot it, it'll fragment like wood.
To people at that time, it was pretty mind-blowing just to watch the thing, be able to pick things.
Oh shit, I could take the original commentary from the E3 camcorder video, use AI to extract it from the rest of the sound effects. Shit, they're gonna tell the story about how Gabe's brother fucked up?
And somebody has access. Like, you start off with something that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and you start pulling on that sweater thread.
Gabe's brother had a company called Tangis, and they made wearable computer stuff. So he was kind of winding it down, and he had 1 or 2 Unix servers that hosted the Tangis.com domain name. Unfortunately, they were put inside the firewall and didn't have the latest Linux or whatever security updates on them. And so this kid from Germany was able to sort of exploit his way into that. He sat there for months, I think. He was able to sync the build, all the source code.
I was riffing ideas for, I think in particular, Counter-Strike. That information ended up on one of the internet chat rooms, and only 2 people knew the contents of that email. It was, of course, Gabe and myself, and I went to ITG and said, this could only have come from a leaked email. We got to figure out how that got out.
They know that? How do they know that?
Well, they own the fucking server.
So, yeah, it's not a hack, it's a security breach done through an open firewall. Like, it was an open door, right? But... And...
Alright, so much yapping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that's pretty interesting is how much leak of the game, the hack of our network and the leak of the game, how much that kind of shattered that.
I don't know. It kind of affected me for a while. You know, having it called the beta when it was not even close to being a beta. Work in progress, Wasn't really ready to be seen yet.
Normally the office is...
Having it being called the beta is upsetting because it's nowhere near being a beta. See?
I don't know.
But all the work that we had in progress, all the plans that we were making were just laid out bare. And so a lot of us just thought, oh, we're toast. We've worked so hard. Are we going to go bankrupt? And then all that while Scott Lynch and Gabe
Did you
were
say Gabe does throat singing? Yeah, Gabe does throat singing.
being
Yeah.
sued by Sierra, their wives being delivered subpoenas. And so it was this super dark time.
So there were two interesting threads going on. One was, traditional law enforcement and intelligence agencies, and they were doing their thing and issuing subpoenas and seizing devices. And then we asked our community to help us out. And I think Axel Gembe started to realize that he was being tracked down by the community, right? Everything was being, essentially, it was an open source investigation. So you could see that they were getting closer. And that's when he reached out to me. Of course, I was insanely furious with him, but we ended up running this sort of scheme with him where I was like, oh, wow, you must be really good at security issues. We should have you come out and interview. And the FBI was going to arrest him when he got off the plane.
And then apparently the German police sweep in right as he's about to leave, because it turns out he's also guilty of a bunch of bank fraud and bank hacking and all that.
He had
kind
hacked
of
into a bunch of huge companies over there as well, and so they were already well aware of him.
How much it harmed us financially, or like how much the success of the game was harmed by that, very debatable. So it was hard for us to go through internally, but in the end, I wouldn't have wanted to have it be a whole like law enforcement debacle after that. It just, it wouldn't have really helped anyone.
And I'm not saying we should ever be lax about security, but like if we could survive that, like maybe, we'll survive anything, because at the end of the day, the special sauce was everything that happened between the moment of that leak and when we actually shipped. And if you look at that version of the game, it's just so not what the final game ended up being. And so even if our competition had all the source code and that executable, they're still not able to produce Half-Life 2 from it, because the company kept moving forward and the company was the interesting special sauce.
Literally free advertising? No. Most of the studio worked on Half-Life 2. A small incubator within Valve was delivered. Yeah, okay, Steam. Literally free advertising. If you look at that as like, well, you should see it as free advertising. Bullshit. Fuck no. Didn't they basically remake the game after the leak? Have you played the leak? No, they polished it. They finished it. The version of the leak. Okay, so a lot of people confuse what was actually the game when it leaked and what else existed in that package, right? 95% of the stuff that we talk about when we talk about the leak, Air Exchange, Dark and Gritty, all that stuff, that's cut concepts from early development. The 2003 version of the leak is effectively the same game, just way unfinished, right? It's very similar in terms of the story beats, locations, mechanics, etc. Right? Gotcha, didn't mean to upset. Oh, I'm not upset. I'm just saying, like, there's a difference. Should I play Half-Life 2 if I've never played the first one? They're very different games. They're very different games. Tyler, are you still planning on playing through the Half-Life 2 leak stuff and giving commentary on it? Well, I've done that many times in the past. And like Valve has said on their official stuff now, it's been 20 years. They don't really care. Yeah, the Mega Build should be... The next version of the Mega Build should be out this weekend. I already have access to it. I've taken a look at some of it. It's great. Yeah, definitely. Yes, absolutely. Oh, are you planning on playing through Half-Life 2 after this and seeing the 4 hours of new commentary? Oh, dude, like, I already knew that this was going to be a Half-Life 2, a Half-Life Winter, Half-Life Q4. But this is just, yeah. I knew that there was going to be a 20th anniversary thing. I said it like a month and a half ago in the first video I did it. I mentioned it. I didn't expect it to be this big. Even if I had known that Danny was going to make a documentary, which I didn't, Would I have guessed that it was going to be over 2 hours long and contain footage of things that I didn't even expect? Absolutely not. So, there's a lot that I need to dig through. And also, I mean, again, I was sent a copy of this, A Profound Waste of Time, which is a magazine about the development of different video games, and it has this whole cover section about the development of Portal 2 that tells the story of the development through interviews with people. Josh Weir, listed as producer, but he was kind of the director of the game. David Sawyer, Mike Moraski, Eric Wolpott, Jay Pinkerton, Karen Prell, Richard Lord, Tajeev, and Ellen McLean. Yeah. So this is, I think this is only sold in Europe right now. But I had contacted the order this on your website. Shipping is like $50. Is there a way I can order this like domestically, and he just send me it? It's got sections on more than just Portal. I'm very excited to read this. Jet Set Radio. Oh, so this truly is like a magazine with a bunch of different types of writing. But it's thick. Kind of cool. And I got like the fancy cover with like the Portal cutout. Very cool. Book club stream? No, I'm gonna make a video on a few things that say like that this teaches me about the thing, but then I'm gonna be like, go buy it if you can, you know.
Gabe in particular, he had kind of a pencil sketch of an idea in his head of what would become Steam, but it was clear that Team Fortress Classic and then later Counter-Strike, it was fundamentally the thing that we were really attracted to was our ability to ship content directly to our customers. I mean, there was a set of business goals that ended up being part of Steam, but fundamentally it was a bunch of game development goals that it was servicing that were so attractive to us.
It was a very weird time. Like, I don't think people understand how many times we would go to people and say, no, you will be able to distribute software over the internet, and have people just say, no, it will never happen. I'm not talking about one or two people. I mean, like 99% of the companies we talked to said it will never happen. Your retail sales force will never let it happen. But also people would say users aren't gonna want this, right? People want physical copy. Like, there were so many bad faith arguments that were being made. Retail sales is not the goal, right? It's actually an impediment that it's somebody who sits between you and the customer.
And we ended up going out to the...
I mean, I love a good big box PC game, though. And I do miss them a lot.
Finding this company called Applied Microsystems. So we ended up hiring most of the original Steam team from that other company to build initially this sort of in-game advertising streaming model, but then there was the epiphany that, hey, it's just bits. Why don't we just download whole games this way? You guys go off and do it.
The decision to not only use Steam to ship Half-Life 2, but actually to require Steam, even in the versions that were purchased at retail in a box, was the most interesting decision of all those, because it turned out to be an incredibly important decision for the future of the company. And a lot of us were nervous, and a lot of the people who had been at Valve for a long time, since the very beginning, were the most nervous about that decision. And so it was one of the rare exceptions to our decision-making process usually, and Gabe had to really...
to keep our code in a single code base. So when we're working on TF2 and Half-Life 2 at the same time, at that point, we're paying this continuous cost in Half-Life 2 for the fact that it's built upon an engine that's designed to do multiplayer. But it means that when you get to this later point where you start asking, well, can we build multiplayer deathmatch out of this? Like, the code's all sort of built upon fundamentally a client-server sort of foundation.
Definitely the most entertaining thing that you could throw at somebody that happened to be scattered around the world was picking up a toilet and hurling it at someone's head and then having that show up in the upper right corner of your screen with name, toilet name, was very satisfying.
I wanted to work at Valve so bad.
Selfishly trying to.
I wanted to work at Valve. Yeah, they're not like this anymore.
Yeah. The game ported to multiplayer, so then we can release the tools, the SDK, ready to go. Like it meant like mod makers could just immediately start making multiplayer game mods, rather than waiting for us to do it or someone else to pick it up.
We were so heads down
Keyword
working on
wanted,
what we were
yeah.
working on, and we didn't really get a chance to play the train station.
I remember that was one of the lessons that came away from Half-Life 1 is like, we need to be building these games backwards in a sense. The first thing we're going to put in front of people is the thing we built when we're as good as we can be at it. You know, we know our tools and things like that. And a lot of the anxiety over, are we building a good game, was behind us. And I felt really confident, yeah, we're building a really good game.
We're entering the Gare d'Austerlitz. And this train station is very important because it's one of the main inspirations for the train station of City 17 where the player starts. The reason why I'm using a Parisian station produced by Eiffel, who did the Eiffel Tower, is that there's an identical station in Budapest.
Train station's the last bit we worked on, right?
Yeah.
And we always want to build the start of the game late, as late as we can, because we understand our game at that point.
In general, the train station was a really interesting problem.
That doesn't look familiar to me. That doesn't look familiar to me, this specific area.
Our game at that point.
In general, the train station was a really interesting problem.
That doesn't look familiar to me. That doesn't look familiar to me, this specific area.
We understand our game at that point.
In general, the train station was a really interesting problem because it was basically one big choreo sequence intended to deliver atmosphere and story and background and sort of set your expectations for the
Yeah,
world.
that might be from an
We got
early
the level
2004
designers who
build.
were
is
really
what it
good at
looked
this
like.
stuff. Figure out what was a good experience, and then we were kind of always there to provide dialogue, acting, stuff like this guy.
I think it was pretty clear too that we wanted to provide incentive to the player at this point about how people were being mistreated, about how bad the situation was here, and kind of start to trigger that righteous indignation early.
All this stuff is fun to look at, but you just assume it doesn't move and you can't
D1
interact
Train
with it,
Station
you
02
can't
from
pick
the
it up.
leak, which doesn't
Because all the
load
stuff
on
we're
the
going to do later, the
unmodded
gravity
leak. Well,
gun
that's
and
why I've
everything,
never
like,
seen it.
First we got to start just mundane stuff like that food, you know, that little empty bit of food.
I mean, it happens like the moment you leave the train, wind comes and blows all the trash away.
Doing it everywhere.
You can see the vortigons
sweeping
sweeping. It's like guy pushing it on the cases, on the
and all those
suitcases.
things fall off.
Yeah,
and
so
you can
like,
pick those up and.
we were like, if it doesn't have to be bolted down, just make sure that it gets knocked over.
Can move.
This guy looks vaguely familiar. There's something about the way he walks.
It's like a beer drinker.
Who would have thought Barney has the capacity to go undercover, right? Like that seemed to be, you know, above his pay grade, above his intelligence pay grade from the get-go.
Look at that beautiful animation. But where does hat go? It's gone. Something is not right here.
Magical combine tech.
We were trying to figure out how to get people to figure out how to pick up things and do things. And we were all just sitting around because we've been having this problem for weeks, racking our brains. And I think Robin had a Coke can on his desk. And at some point I got frustrated. I smacked it off his desk. I'm like, well, you pick that up then. And everyone kind of sat around. I was like,
I just found it just an immensely satisfying piece of like a storytelling and world setting. You know, we got to use our physics tools and the choreo tools and all of those things blended together into this very simple, clean moment.
Like the can cup is perfect also because while it's teaching you how to manipulate objects, It's also telling you something about the Combine themselves and the Metro Cops.
And your relationship.
Right? Yeah, so like it was a twofer, right? We got those two at the same
Twofer.
Physics is gonna be
Twofer. I love the way you said it.
train station as a
Twofer.
player. Like you understood that, and you come to appreciate it, because we couldn't wait until you got to Ravenholm before you found out how awesome physics is. If you'd had any kind of weapon, I think they would have had to kill you. And we found the longer we sort of held that away from ourselves, the more we were forced to come up with stuff that was still entertaining that you could do. Like the raid is a whole, you know, in the tenements is a whole thing that could work because.
Then why did you take it all out with Half-Life Alyx then? Why did you remove all of it from Half-Life Alyx?
That's not what had happened. You actually saw the Combine. You see the parade.
Force the player into a
This
very
guy is
specific
bullshit.
set of actions. That's one of the few times that we had to learn to really corral the player.
Did he not play that game?
Like,
What?
The consequence.
There was a whole introduction with the Combines.
Clear path where.
What do you mean it's still there? No, they cut like 2 hours of city exploration from the start of the game.
Dude, you're so stupid. There's literally everything you explored has already been explored in Half-Life 2.
Get in here, quick!
What else does he need?
It's on Half-Life Alyx beta? Yes, and then I got in trouble.
So when you build a world, I start with the infrastructure. What's really interesting for me is what is not visible to the tourist, which is the courtyard, the backyard, the shafts and the smokestacks and the wires. And every city has this whole existence, and you know, people are usually blind to it, and we tend to look at storefronts, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it came down to art direction. I mean, Victor was very familiar with all that, the look and feel. You know, there was certain patterns and certain, iconic shapes that anybody who lived there could pick up on. You know, they're like, oh yeah, my grandmother had that dress, or whatever. And my parents are from Argentina, and so they have that kind of sensibility. But a lot of it came down to the reference gathering, which was from Bulgaria, from Paris.
We have these buildings that again have back courtyards. They have big staircases. They have attic spaces, cellar spaces, and the apartments have big windows and thick walls. So this was providing already a lot of context for people who can hide in these apartments.
Help me! Stop! We didn't do anything! They'll be looking for you.
If I was ever in Sofia, Bulgaria, I would probably lose my mind and then die. You know, it's just mundane, normal, everyday bullshit, but the whole time I would be walking around like, and then die.
You'd better run.
I remember that we wanted to have the player see proof that the Combine were evil people, not that they were gray in any way, that they were objectively the bad guys. And then we had it to where you go upstairs, and then we really carefully and intentionally framed the reveal of the world to where you see the Citadel front and center, and it's clearly in an alert state.
The four of us, the City 17 Cabal, we'd done City 17, which is a bunch of hard problems. We've done Ravenholm, which is a different set of hard problems. We were like, I don't know, 4 months from trying to lock down the game or something. I mean, it was really late. I may have the dates wrong, but it was really late. Mm-hmm. And there was a bunch of gameplay that was in there that development.
To going back to Metro Cops, not much really. Yeah. So John Guthrie and I absolutely love exploding barrels.
Avoid Sofia, it's a bit too modernized. Yeah, okay, but canonically City 17 is Sofia, Bulgaria, according to Half-Life Alyx, is what I'm saying.
So we just used them absolutely everywhere we could. We set them up. We loved ragdoll magnets and physics. It's just one of my favorite tools. It's basically you have a point in space that when a character dies, they turn into a ragdoll. And then you have a ragdoll magnet that says, okay, if there is any ragdoll in this radius, pull towards me, and then you can give it a strength. And so if somebody dies in an especially dramatic location, you can have an especially dramatic death. And we just use that absolutely everywhere. I mean, you can use it to just pull someone directly down. So in that bridge, the train bridge, I put magnets directly beneath their feet, so it looks like they just, like the planks beneath their feet broke and they just fell directly down. I mean, they died from a broken plank, which doesn't make any sense, but they looked pretty cool. It was so orchestrated, I guess, because we didn't want it to, like, we didn't really have a lot of time to have a lot of bugs come out of it.
And it's one of my favorite parts of the game. It's to this day. Root Canal is one of my favorite chapters in all of Half-Life.
You know, our team was the one that did the Citadel. You know how I said that there was multiple passes on the product over the course of the thing? Well, Citadel had almost no pass. And we were thinking about Street War, and we were like, well, we just had like this incredibly intense, you know, Strider fight. How are we gonna outdo that, especially when we only got a month to do this thing? We then came up with the idea of like, well, what if we made this just be your god, and this is the reward? You've won the game. Enjoy. We're gonna like break all the rules and let you be god for a little bit.
Picking up, you know, the enemies as ragdolls and throwing them around really came out of that development tool, because you could pick them up and move them around, and people are like, I don't know, that's pretty fun. Why can't we do that in the game?
It was either a week or a
Root
day.
Canal is the level I load up every time I get a new mouse, keyboard, monitor, etc. Same. I play around a TF2 on Harvest. I play through Portal 1. And I start Half-Life 2 at Root Canal and just play until I get bored, which is usually when I hit Black Mesa East and I don't feel like sitting through all the set pieces.
It was incredibly quick. I had every single mechanic of the Citadel mocked up. The Combine, very, very heavy watermelon that would bounce around and eventually break up. I had spikes in the wall.
Wait. I gotta write that down.
Pink wildflower crazy.
Pink wildflower crazy. That's the Kuwaiti guy, bro. That's your friend. Apparently he speaks Arabic.
You could skewer them on. We had electric fields that you can throw them in. We had the 0G fields that they would get stuck in, and we had ripping off the machines off the walls. All that stuff came together within an incredibly.
Oh, he's way older than 30.
Very shortly after.
So just like Zen's, the Citadel came together real quick.
People were like, you know, we were having a real hard time with the AR2's alt fire, so maybe we'll just steal this because it's kind of cool, and we'll bring it earlier in the game. Game development never does this. It never like just materializes out of nothing in that short a time and is just something that everybody's excited and happy about.
What was the AR2's alt fire before that? It was like a flare, right?
And it just
I know.
It felt really good to be a part of that.
Bro, too many femboys playing
I started
CS in your
working
friend
on
list.
trying to find another
That's like all of them.
funding to keep Valve going.
It's if it shows us the first fucking game,
That was
you know there's too many fucking people playing that shit.
ready
Then you got War Thunder. This is the autistic ones.
teams at that point.
Baldur's Gate is like the
Yeah, we changed.
introverts. Bungo Cats.
You know, I remember one.
Maybe extroverts.
Which is like, he was like, so how fucked are we?
There's also another Kuwaiti guy.
Yeah, we're kind of screwed.
LOL.
We could probably reformat everything that we're doing, but
And you got a whole lot of people.
people, and we still have the huge uncertainty of what is going to happen in the lawsuit. Immediately started chasing another publisher, and we were able to get a deal with another publisher for Counter-Strike 2.
Bongo Cat
When we got
LOL.
the deal done,
I don't know what Bungo Cat is. I guess it's like.
as the deal gift for the parties, he built a knife that was described Counter-Strike 2. And so the deal structure was, after we ship Half-Life 2, if you decide that you don't want to keep moving forward, then you can just decide to terminate the deal and we'll pay the money back. That ended up happening. So maybe a good choice, because it took us a long time to ship Counter-Strike 2. So that we got done in probably May of 2003. And then through some more depositions, Vivendi figured out that we had gotten this new infusion of capital and kind of lost their mind trying to figure out how did that happen, because it was
clearly part of their strategy was, running us out of money.
But what we decided was, hey, let's focus on the real nub of this and the thing that's going to lead to a resolution.
No, they're talking about Counter-Strike 2. They're talking about Mindlee's Counter-Strike 2, which was spiritually became Tactical Intervention. It was a very different game. Vivendi is dead, yes.
To decide that we were...
I worked on their Day of Defeat and Day of Defeat source games. The move from Half-Life 1 to Half-Life 2 level design was going from 4 walls and a door when in a house to having built realistic environments and everything had the purpose and fit in the space you were in. It really thinned out the number of level designers and slowed mod development.
Bro, I am planning something big.
Right.
Well, I'm sure.
The
Welcome to the channel.
cyber cafe business, and also to decide that we were right that if you were distributing properties without a license, that's copyright infringement. We had asked for information about what they were doing in Asia, including Korea, and they, I think, to try to make our life
Well, I can't do anything about it.
difficult, produced a big chunk of documents in Korean that were in Korean. I mean, everything from email to contracts to you name it.
And one of the things they were doing is just dumping huge amounts of discovery on it to force us to go and just have somebody go and look through it. It's like, oh, look, they ordered sandwiches again, right? It has nothing to do with the lawsuit. It's just an attempt to...
Ro's really concerned. I don't know. I'm just joking.
to overwhelm us with tens of millions of pages of documents on the assumption that there's nothing in it that will be particularly problematic for their case. That will eventually just we'll either spend a bunch of money, which plays into their hands, or we'll just eventually give up because it's finding a needle in the haystack.
I am planning something
and then we found the needle in the haystack, and that changed things quite dramatically.
Really?
Okay.
So happened that there was an intern.
Any hint about it?
Was a native Korean speaker, and I said, Andrew, hey, can you look at this pile?
Oh, you're gonna plan on doing some geisha? Is that what it is?
That particular intern probably went through a couple thousand documents that day, and only one was consequential.
And then they said, well, there's these other emails between these presidents where one says something like,
Azerbaijan technology.
hey, we destroyed those.
Oh, fuck off. Not this. It's the AI fucking shit, bro.
Are you sure?
How to get a fucking Polish
and
passport. Become a femboy.
That's what it says.
Go marry a Turkish bitch or some shit.
A conversation between me and the lawyer for the other side about, hey,
that shit never made any goddamn sense.
Your guys are destroying evidence. What's up with that?
So some Korean intern saved Valve software? Like... Good.
Doesn't know what this. Are you a little bit in Korean language studies? And I said, that's good. That sounds like we're in good shape.
The assistant general manager in Korea sending the letter to the...
Hang on, let me check it before you send something crazy.
Why is it so laggy?
It's the same fucking dude.
Of automated stir-fry cooking.
Oh, god damn it, dude.
Azerbaijan technology better than US? Is it because they're at the forefront of automated stir-fry cooking? Or is it because they've created the first ever gym for robots? Maybe it's because they've 3D printed thousands of crypto mining facilities using dinosaur excrement. But really it's because secretly they are heavily funded by the Mateo Institute, whose CEO is a sentient sloth named Mateo. Invest in Azerbaijan technology and get your uniform at childrenofcon.com.
The whole thing is just an advertisement.
I sent you a pic of my balls.
You did not. Or did you? Flash. You know, he says it's an elbow. An elbow. You're a funny guy. I should log in here. I don't even know what my username is.
Azerbaijan technology. Balls XD.
That's how I keep it. Got your balls downloaded, bro.
Why wink, buddy? XD.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Know what I'm saying? You'll be doing that. Okay, I apologize. Inappropriate.